we're heading towards the halfway mark of the painting. I had to make a bigger maul stick because of the size of the canvas, and for this I used a broom handle. This is one of those light metal broom handles, and I used my old maul stick head, which is basically just a piece of rolled up chamois, and place that on the end of the broom handle where you screw the broom head into it. When you use a maul stick, you must press on the edge of the painting or the canvas, because if you press in the middle, the canvas might stretch. And something else is, as you can see with my left hand, I always place a finger on the canvas. The reason for this is because the canvas is stretched. Every time you take a brush stroke on it, it resonates, almost like a drum, and there's shock waves going through it, and that really messes around with your eyes. So when you just keep one finger on the canvas, more or less in the middle, like my pinky is doing now, then it dampens those vibrations and keeps the canvas stable so that you don't have that. Another advantage of this very long maul stick is I can even rest it on the table, which gives me extra stability. So sometimes you have to use the maul stick in mid-air. You can hold it against the frame of the canvas on the far end, but your left hand is in the middle of nowhere and it still has to support your right hand. Oftentimes the maul stick slips off the canvas edge, and that can sometimes lead to terrible mistakes. My optimism on the painting is picking up during this stage. I'm starting to get over the depression and the stress of being able to finish the painting. The background is now very advanced. It's not very far from completion, and I can spend more and more time on the car. And as I do this, I keep on thinking back of these race drivers and the engineers who came up with these ideas, like fitting an aeroplane engine into a car, and all the ideas that they tried. Some are really interesting. This car, for example, had two leaf springs at the back at each wheel, and with this particular car you had 3 cylinder banks, so you also had 3 exhaust pipes, and the way they made these exhaust pipes were very interesting to me. It really contributes to the character of the car. Sadly, I could only do this side of the car, because if I painted it from the other side, you would see the other 2 exhaust pipes, which would look a bit more interesting. A lot of the work that I'm doing now is kind of fine details. I wouldn't really say fine details, but there is some detail work in it as the car is starting to take shape, but I still make lots of adjustments and changes. And this is the next day again. At this stage, the surface of the road in the front corner there where my left hand is doesn't really look right according to the way the car is moving. The perspective isn't right, the road isn't disappearing in the right direction, and this kind of makes it look like there is a bulge in the road more or less where my left hand was just now. So I have to change that. And the radiator cap of this car was also very difficult for me because I cannot find proper pictures of it. So at the moment I'm just placing something there and starting to work with it, but while I'm not working on the painting I try to research radiator caps online so that I can hopefully get the right one that was on the Napier Railton and paint it in the way it should be. And the first layer of the aluminium of the body has also been done. That's why the body now has a bluish kind of look to it. For aluminium I try to give it more of a bluish grey, so that chrome, which is also blue, but in Europe they use nickel plating, so plated materials would have a warmer sheen to them or shine to them, and I'm trying to make a clear difference between the two of them so that people can see that this is not part of the aluminium. And also the aluminium should be kind of bluish as well with all the reflections going on. This is yet another day. I cannot work too many hours at a time because I have a back injury, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing the watercolors these days, because I can just sit and paint. With these large oil paintings I have to stand, and the back can really start to hurt. And so I'm avoiding painting too much. I usually get in maybe 2 hours a day with an oil painting like this. But you cannot really paint more than that anyway. When you're using the technique I'm using, which is basically glazing, I mix the paint with liquid. You can only paint a layer and then you have to wait for the layer to dry out before you can do the next one. So it would be nicer if you could do quite a few paintings simultaneously and you spend 1 hour on each painting per day. Where I live it's quite warm, so the paint takes only 1 day to get touch dry. So every day you can do the next layer. But sometimes when my back is aching I wait more than that, more than a day, sometimes a week. I'm trying to move the camera around as much as I can to show you different angles of how I paint. Here you can see again how I use my left hand to dampen the canvas, and I noticed at this point that there's a kind of a bulge on the body of the car where the exhaust on the right hand side of the car exits the car, where the exhaust manifold sits, and that is that oval shiny piece that you can see behind the front wheel. And I missed the part where you can also see it behind the wheel. You can see it in front and behind the wheel. And so I added that now, and I'm giving the wheels some layers, again trying not to add too much detail to the wheels. I haven't started with the driver yet, and I don't know, maybe I was scared of painting the driver. You know, it's difficult. I don't have many pictures of John Cobb, and on these high-speed pictures and videos you can't really see much of his face. You cannot see much details, and I don't even know if he was frowning or smiling or grinding his teeth or just relaxed when he drove. I don't even know where he was looking, so I'm still thinking about things like that while I'm working on the background. I'm doing more details on the trees, but I'm thinking maybe there's too much details on the trees. I do like how they look, how they're starting to look, but maybe it's a bit too much, because I still want the car to be the main feature. Even though it helps to have a nice landscape, some people like the landscapes. The suspension components are a bit difficult in this picture that I used. So as you can see in the background there, I downloaded one of the Goodwood Festival photos of the current car, and I'm using that now. The suspension parts didn't change too much on the car, and there are parts that I'm leaving out. I don't have the details from the photo that I'm working from, and I don't know if those parts were really the same as today's car. It is there in the middle of the car, the nose of the car. The aluminium seems to have been wrapped around a cross member. I'm working on the shock absorber. In the old days they used friction to absorb the movement of the springs on the suspension. Today we have pneumatic shock absorbers, and you also have shock absorbers in motorsports that work with hydraulic liquids. And you have a little plunger, and the fluid pushes through the plunger, and the faster you try to push in the shock, the more resistance it gives. Now, in the old days, they had these friction shock absorbers, which didn't really make too much of a difference with the velocity of the traveling of the wheel. So today, the faster your wheel travels vertically on the car, the harder the shock absorber will resist it, so it will dampen the movement of it quicker. And in the old days, on those cars, I think it made less of a difference, which was one of the reasons those cars didn't handle very well. But it was an interesting concept, and they used it with leaf springs, which are also extremely difficult to design, especially if you have more than one leaf spring working together. I'm back on the radiator cap now, trying to make it shine a bit. It looks like it hasn't been made of aluminium. Maybe it was stainless steel or something. It was shiny, it was polished. Some parts of it are made of plates that they bend. So I think it should be a bit shiny. The two rings across the bonnet are leather straps, which you find a lot, but later on I saw that this car actually had 3 of them, one just behind the nose. So anyway, that was this part. Please like and subscribe and share. Thanks for watching, and keep well.